Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports, your trusted and independent place to go to see how historic and cataclysmal events can change public opinion in the blink of an eye. And of course, today's topic is going to be this weekend's attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And what we have is our first post-assassination polling numbers to look at. But if you haven't seen it yet, please check our previous video out where we go into our general thoughts on the topic and draw upon some really great polling that we've done over the last couple of years that show the horrifying state of the political discourse in this country and how it may have contributed to this event. But what we're going to be talking about today is, who do voters blame for this event? And it doesn't seem to be a question that a lot of people are asking, except for, that one attempt that Lester Holt made to have President Joe Biden own up to any contribution he have made to the situation. So hold on to see that. But I will say how fascinated I am by how fast the news cycle has moved on to other things. Things like the RNC, Trump's momentum, his VP pick. It really seems strange to me. There's this optimism about the race on the right. And if you look at, your favorite mainstream media outlet site, there is not a lot of real estate given to the attempted assassination. I really find that crazy. It's less than 96 hours since the leading presidential candidate was literally shot. He was shot. And it's not in the news media less than 4 days later. The markets really didn't even move either, which I find absolutely crazy because, whether Trump or Biden gets elected has some pretty big implications as far as market moves are concerned. We haven't even seen the same old gun control narratives get trotted out after every unexpected shooting. It really is strange. And if you have any theories about what's driving the news cycle, make sure you post them in the YouTube comments. I'd love to see what you think about it. But first things first, we're going to get into the latest Joe Biden job approval numbers. And this now is 5 nights of data, half of which was post-assassination attempt. And Joe Biden's current job approval rating is 43%, which, if you haven't been following us, you may think is high, but his current approval is 13 points underwater. And our latest two-way matchup had Trump up 6. So to me, it makes kind of sense that in a race where Trump's winning by just 6, Joe Biden is underwater by 13 as far as his job approval rating. But this number is actually down from 45% 2 days ago, and where it has been most of the time since Joe Biden's horrifying debate performance. And that's right, really the only change in the numbers was a Democrat pity bounce, driving his Democrat job approval rating up to 80%. And if you look now, it has been dropping and is now down to 74%, almost halfway to where it was just back in, let's say, the middle of May, in the high 60s. So Democrats really didn't like Joe Biden's job approval that much, and then they circled the wagons after the debate. The other big thing to point out here is the change in the Democrat right track, wrong direction numbers. For the first time in a long while, among all likely voters, right track is now under 30 points, which is a big movement. But Democrats were north of 50 with right track. I think it got to 52 or 53, and right track was up 12 or 13 points over wrong direction. And they are right back to where they were in the middle of May, split on whether the country is headed on the right track or in the wrong direction. Maybe they're getting a little concerned about the direction of the race. But here's our first question, and these are from Monday and Tuesday night data. Will the recent assassination attempt against Donald Trump make it more or less likely that Trump wins this year's presidential election? Or will the assassination attempt not make much difference in the outcome of the election? And overwhelmingly, by a pretty strong plurality, voters say that the assassination attempt will make it more likely that Trump wins in the fall than less likely, only 13%. I have the margin in the bottom. So more likely wins over less likely by 31 points, which is a pretty stunning lead. And more voters say it makes Trump more likely to win than would vote for Joe Biden in 2024. 1/3 of the electorate, 33%, says it really doesn't make much difference. Now, I will say what I've been pretty surprised to see during this election cycle is how little events in the news have changed the race matchup numbers. People kind of know who Trump and Biden are at this point, and Biden's, horrifying debate performance actually made him do a little bit better because Democrats felt sorry for him. He lost his crossover advantage. And I think the public opinion paradox there is that the more likely people think it is that Trump will win, the more likely they would vote for Joe Biden over, say, somebody like undecided or RFK or a third party candidate. Now, men are more likely to say more likely, almost a majority, 49%. Women, it's only 40%. And they're 13 points, more likely over less likely than women. Younger voters are more likely to say more likely, 48% to 42% for voters 65 and over. But voters over 40 do have more likely winning by a bigger margin. Only 9% of voters over 40 think that this event makes it less likely that Trump wins. And, I guess there's an interesting race symbol. It's almost a wash with black voters, but white and Hispanic voters pretty much agree that this event makes it more likely that Trump wins, with Hispanic voters giving us the only majority here. But here are the political demographics, and I think these are a little bit more interesting. A third of Democrats say it's more likely that this makes Trump win in the fall, but only 21% say less likely. So, a 12-point margin there, but Republicans overwhelmingly say this event makes it more likely, 61% to 10%, and independents are somewhere in the middle. 40% say more likely, only 7% say less likely. But look at Joe Biden approval. Even Joe Biden strong approvers are more likely to say more likely, 24% to 16%, although 52% of them say it doesn't make much difference. And Joe Biden strong disapprovers, it's 60% to 6%, or a 53-point margin, the biggest signal anywhere in the demographics. But here's the big question. And I will say, please hold on to the end because there's another question after this that you're not going to want to miss. But which is more likely, that the attempted assassination of Donald Trump was mainly caused by the gunman's mental health problems, or that it was mainly caused by the rhetoric of Trump's political opponents? And voters are split 40% mental health to 41% rhetoric within the margin of error. And I guess the biggest surprise to me here is how big the not sure response is, although I do think that has something to do with the fact that we asked these questions, all this data was collected less than 72 hours after the event. I think a lot of people are holding on till the boat stops rocking, but a majority of Democrats, 53%, say mental health. But more than 1 in 4 Democrats do say that the rhetoric of Trump's opponents is more to blame here. That's really an incredible finding. Although Republicans are just as introspective and open-minded, 28% of them say it's mental health, but a bigger majority of Republicans say it's the political rhetoric, 57%. And independents, again, are split 40% mental health to 39% rhetoric. I put education in here because every once in a while, I like to check in on what I call the street smart signal. And high school dropouts overwhelmingly, 46% to 16%, say that it was political rhetoric, although what you also see here is a really big not sure signal. And high school graduates, again, rhetoric wins 48% to 37%. But it is the other way around for the most educated voters. 48% of them say mental health and only 36% say rhetoric. But again, for the biggest signal, we go to Joe Biden, job approval. Apologies for my video cutting off this data a little bit, but strong approvers of Joe Biden overwhelmingly say that mental health issues are to blame, and only 14% say Joe Biden or, Trump's political opponents have any culpability here. Maybe you think that number is low, maybe it's high, I'm not sure. The somewhats are kind of in the middle. The Joe Biden somewhat approvers lead mental health quite a bit. Strong disapprovers, I'm really surprised, but almost 1/4 of them say that it is probably just a crazy guy with a gun, but 61% of them say it's the rhetoric of Trump's opponents. And the final question, do you agree or disagree with this statement? The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. 61% of the country at least somewhat agrees with that statement. 40%, the same amount who would vote for Joe Biden in an election if it was held today, strongly agree with that statement. 31%, I guess it rounds down to 30%, disagree. 22%, only 22% strongly disagree. And the margin is there at the bottom for all of you to see. Agree beats disagree by more than a 2-to-1 margin. And just in case you wondered, that quote is from the new vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, who the Biden campaign plans to label a MAGA extremist. By a 2-to-1 margin, voters agree with J.D. Vance. And a plurality of Democrats actually agree with that statement as well. 27% strongly, 46% at least somewhat agree. Only 43% disagree, although I think they found a lot to love in that question because I think a lot of them did vote for Biden because of his central premise that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. The somewhats are in the middle again, but look at the Joe Biden strong disapprover column. 81% of them agree with that statement, 60% strongly, only 11% disagree, only 5% strongly. Thanks for hanging in there. That was a lot of wood to chop. If you found anything interesting that I didn't cover, make sure you drop it in the comments so other people can see and opine as well. We like to discuss public opinion here on this channel. Subscribe if you haven't already and leave a like on the video while you have, because you're not going to want to miss what's coming later this week. Tomorrow, we're going to have really great numbers. We're going to see how afraid voters are that there will be a repeat assassination attempt on Donald Trump or a first assassination attempt on Joe Biden. And let me tell you, there is quite a big difference in the data. And on Friday, we're going to have numbers back that were also very hastily gathered, where voters give their first report card on Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. There is the big question on everybody's mind that we thought it was a little too soon to put into the field. That's going into the field tonight. Did the gunman act alone? I think that's a really important topic to discuss because that's the problem when events like this weekend happen. People lose faith in their government, even if it was solely driven by incompetence. And so if you have concerns about what happened and think there's a chance that somebody helped out the shooter, please don't let anybody gaslight you as a conspiracy theorist. Events like this need to be explored. And the final and biggest thing with numbers coming this week, and I've been talking about this for 2 to 3 weeks now, is our mega swing state poll showing numbers from 6 battleground states and a national poll as well with some really great topics, not least of which is very inconvenient numbers about potential election fraud in battleground states. And I think these numbers are going to change the discussion about election integrity. So follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, either at Rasmussen_poll. You can follow me too at Mark_R_Mitchell. And thanks for watching.